Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am so pumped to have you here today. If you are gearing up to truly master the fundamentals of biology, you're in the exact right spot. Today, we're unlocking what I like to call the ultimate biological survival guide. We are going to explore those incredible, totally invisible systems that keep you, me, and honestly every living thing on this planet alive and kicking. It's an absolutely fascinating topic, so let's just dive right in.
You know, people often point out that biology is a really uniquely beautiful subject. Like, think about it for a second. The math folks, they're always out there trying to find X. The physics crowd is busy setting up elaborate experiments to find Newton's laws in action. But biology? Biology studies the ultimate subject. We aren't looking for a missing number or a physics law. We're trying to find and understand life itself. And really, that's what this entire chapter is all about.
Now, before we get too deep into the weeds, we got to clear something up. What exactly is a life process? Look, I know scrolling on your phone for hours might feel like it's essential to your existence. Maybe it even feels like a borderline addiction, but let me just playfully burst that bubble. Scrolling on your smartphone is definitely not a life process. When we say life processes, we're talking about the basic, absolutely essential activities that an organism literally has to perform to sustain and maintain its life. These are the relentless behind-the-scenes processes maintaining your homeostasis, and they're running 24/7, even when you're dead asleep.
Okay, so how do we actually categorize all these vital activities? Well, I like to use a really simple acronym to serve as our structural roadmap for this whole explainer. Kind of like your body's invisible loading bar. It's RENT. Just think RENT. That stands for respiration, excretion, nutrition, and transportation. Together, these four foundational pillars are exactly what ensures an organism can grab energy, distribute materials around, and kick out the waste.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, Nutrition, Securing the Fuel.
So, when we talk about nutrition, which is just the specific process of grabbing the food you need for nourishment, energy, growth, and repair, organisms basically fall into two main camps. Because, you gotta secure the fuel before you can do anything else, right? On one side, we have autotrophic nutrition. This is where organisms like green plants and certain bacteria literally make their own food from scratch using super basic inorganic sources like carbon dioxide and water. Total DIYers. On the flip side, we have heterotrophic nutrition. This is us, animals, plus fungi. Heterotrophs can't just magically make food. Instead, we rely on ingesting complex external stuff, which we then dynamically break down into simpler forms using specialized biocatalysts or enzymes. Just look at the sheer elegance of the autotrophic process here. It's the magic equation of photosynthesis. Autotrophs pull in external substances, and with the help of sunlight and chlorophyll, they dynamically convert that carbon dioxide and water straight into carbohydrates, specifically glucose. It's a brilliant bit of energy conversion. And the coolest part? Whatever carbohydrates they don't need to use right that second for energy, they safely stash away as starch, which is actually a lot like our own human bodies store extra energy as glycogen for later use.
Now let's see how this whole fuel gathering thing works for a heterotroph, specifically looking at a tiny single-celled organism like the amoeba. It uses a specific style of heterotrophic nutrition called holozoic nutrition. Even though we are talking about a single microscopic cell, look at how incredibly systematic this is. First, ingestion, grabbing the food. Then digestion, breaking it down. Next is absorption of those nutrients, followed by assimilation right into the cell's bustling little structure, and finally, egestion to kick out whatever waste is left over. It's like 5 perfectly choreographed steps cascading all inside one single cell. No way, right?
Moving right along to Section 2, Respiration, Unlocking the Energy.
Because here's the kicker. Just acquiring the fuel through nutrition, that's really only half the battle. You still have to unlock the energy that's trapped inside it. So what form does that usable energy actually take? Allow me to introduce you to ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. You can basically think of ATP as the ultimate energy currency of your cells. Much like you need cash to buy things at the store, your cells literally spend ATP to get relentless hard work done. Whether that's a powerful muscle contraction, synthesizing brand new molecules, or actively transporting stuff across cell membranes, it all costs ATP.
Now, there are a couple of different ways your cells can actually mint this ATP currency, depending entirely on the environment. Aerobic respiration is the big one. It happens when oxygen is present. It completely breaks down glucose to produce carbon dioxide, water, and, crucially, a massive, massive yield of energy. Anaerobic respiration, on the other hand, happens when there's no oxygen around. It ends up producing things like alcohol or lactic acid. Actually, fun fact, that lactic acid buildup is exactly what gives you those nasty muscle cramps during a super intense workout. And as a trade-off, this oxygen-free pathway yields significantly less energy.
Of course, to pull off aerobic respiration, you gotta breathe in oxygen. But how organisms actually do that depends entirely on where they hang out. Aquatic animals, like fish, use gills. Their gills are designed to meticulously extract the oxygen that is already dissolved right there in the water. Terrestrial animals, like us humans, birds, and reptiles, we use lungs to forcefully process vast amounts of atmospheric oxygen. It's basically two completely different environments requiring two totally different biological engineering solutions just to actively pump that vital oxygen into the bloodstream.
All right, on to sections 3 and 4, transportation and excretion, moving goods and taking out the trash.
Okay, so we've got our fuel and we've unlocked the energy inside it. But now, we need to physically move all those vital materials around the body, and just as importantly, we need to get rid of the toxic byproducts. This perfectly illustrates the interconnected cycle of life processes. You've got energy for life, material movement actively distributing that energy all over, and waste removal getting rid of the toxins. It all works seamlessly together for total body maintenance. In complex multicellular organisms like us, we have incredibly well-developed systems handling these exact tasks non-stop to maintain that critical homeostasis.
Let's do a really quick trace of the plumbing in the human excretory system. The whole shebang starts with a pair of kidneys tucked right back in the abdominal cavity. From there, these tubes called ureters continuously transport the collected liquid down into the urinary bladder. The urine is securely stored there, just waiting, until it's finally expelled out through the urethra. Honestly, it's an incredibly efficient, purpose-built waste management system designed purely to keep our internal environment perfectly balanced.
But what's actually doing the heavy lifting inside those kidneys? Well, the true unsung star of the excretory system is the nephron. Your kidneys are packed with millions, literally millions, of these microscopic, highly functional filtering units. They are doing the relentless dirty work, constantly pulling metabolic wastes straight out of your rushing blood. Seriously, without nephrons filtering everything out, our internal systems would become completely toxic in no time at all.
Okay, before we move on, I highly recommend you physically pause the explainer right now and take a quick screenshot. This flowchart right here is your ultimate life processes cheat sheet. It beautifully summarizes everything we've literally just talked about. Autotrophic and heterotrophic nutrition, aerobic versus anaerobic respiration, the transportation systems in humans and plants, and of course excretion. This is your master study guide. It directly visualizes the connections between all these biological wonders we just explored.
Let's pivot slightly to Section 5, winning the board exam, the strategy shift.
We've toured all the marvels of biology, but right now we need to shift gears to practical reality, absolutely crushing your upcoming board exam. Because knowing the science is fantastic, but knowing how to secure the marks, that's what gets you to the next level. Look at this massive number, 22. According to the syllabus analysis and the Bridge Course Exam Pattern Blueprint, this single chapter holds a staggering weightage of 22 marks. That is huge. This is not a chapter you can just casually skim over. It demands your absolute undivided focus.
So let's break down exactly where those 22 marks are hiding in the exam paper based on the Bridge Course data. First off, there's an 8-mark experiment-based question. That's highly likely to come from activities like the starch test or carbon dioxide requirements. Then you've got a 4-mark diagram, potentially having to draw the excretory or respiratory system. Next up, 6 marks are totally dedicated to application-based, what may happen or precaution-type questions. And finally, 3 marks are basically easy grabs for quick recall. Think slogans, abbreviations, or just labeling a part on a given diagram. Consider this your official battle plan.
So how do we actively turn all this biological theory into guaranteed exam points? Well, by building daily exam hacker habits. The strategies laid out in the Bridge course are super clear. Number 1, you need to practice one complete experiment setup every single day. Number 2, draw at least one major diagram daily to really lock it into your muscle memory. When you're studying, prioritize understanding the core concepts and memorizing key keywords, not just blindly rote learning textbook definitions. And lastly, rigorously solve those previous analytical papers.
Think about what we learned today. Every living organism out there relies on highly structured, relentless daily processes just to survive and thrive. And you know what? Your academic life is really no different. The maintenance of your grades requires continuous focused energy and forward movement. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. Are your daily study habits effectively fueling your ultimate life process, or are you just scrolling on your phone?
Take charge of both your biological and your academic potential. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.